growing up, I was in love with this one boy I knew, and I was like, he's clearly the one, and I like was grasping at straws for reasons why he was the one, and then ended up moving away, and I was still like, no, this is gonna happen. And he also like got married super young and stuff.
Dang it.
I was just like, oh, come on, God.
Hello and welcome to the Christians Who Date podcast. I'm sitting here with Kalli and Lauren.
Hi.
Hello.
They're both drinking coffee.
Two of your best friends, right? Not some of
Two
them.
of my best friends. Yeah.
Earlier, I said they were some of my best friends, and they were like, no, we are the best. And I was like, yes, you are.
Yeah. We
So
just met Lauren's boyfriend.
Yeah, they
did.
Whoa, I'm telling on the podcast.
You led me right into it.
I was trying to keep it chill.
Well, I feel like people, you announced it on here too. Yeah. Now you want to keep it
I know.
chill.
That's actually true. Okay, dear world of anyone who listens between 6th grade and 80 years old. Those are the ages of our listeners.
Yeah, we've just found out.
They did just meet my boyfriend. I'm not ready to reveal him to the world, but there's a man out there who is my man. And that's it. That's all I'm going to say.
So now I feel like it makes more sense to the people listening why I had to clarify, because she's introducing us to her boyfriend and she's like, these are some of my best friends.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hold on a minute.
Hold up.
Yeah. It was a good defining the relationship, for everybody.
If I didn't make this clear, we're about to make it clear right now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just trying to follow suit with, dating on the podcast because that's what's asked of us.
It's funny because there's a guy on Hinge that found the pod.
Oh my gosh. You were like, how did he find that?
Yeah, terrifying. But then he was also like, he's like, I'll let you, we're talking about a phone call and he's like, I'll let you decide because you're the dating expert. And I was like, no. I was like, I am not an expert. Literally, I just like talking about it with my friends. Okay, but disclaimer to everyone listening, we're not experts. We're just doing our best out here.
Yeah. We've learned through a lot of failures if you've been following this. So
yeah.
If we were experts, I think we probably wouldn't still be dating. We'd be married, all of us. So.
Good
unless we've refused multiple proposals, which we have because we just want to keep dating the rest of our life, right?
We really want to become experts, so we got to really commit to just dating.
To be on this podcast, you have to commit to a life of dating, and that's
forever.
Oh my gosh, that sounds literally worse than committing to being single.
Horrible. Oh my gosh,
that is awful.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh my gosh. Well, anyways, yes. Okay, so I am pet sitting right now, and pet sitting's my side hustle.
Nice.
It's a lot of people's side hustle, so no judgment.
Is it Rover or just word of mouth?
Is. I'm on Rover.
No way.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm on Rover.
Yeah, I know someone doing Rover.
I signed up because you used to be on Rover?
No, my boyfriend might be doing Rover too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, anyways, keep going.
Well, I signed up because I was going to be in Austin over the holidays and nobody's from Austin, so everyone leaves. And so I was like, I'm going to make bank over the holidays because I'm the only one here and tons of people are going to need a pet sitter, which didn't turn out to be true. I only got one client, but I stuck it out anyway because it's I don't know, it's random and it's just kind of fun, side money. So anyway, all that to say, I'm pet sitting. And so I go over there this morning to let these 2 dogs out. And one of them is just I just love him. And so this dog just jumps up. I'm sitting on the couch. He jumps up and just starts licking me and wagging his tail. And I was like, oh my goodness, I love you. And I was like, oh my gosh, Andrea, like you just met this dog and you already told him that you love him. You've never even told a boy that you love him. And so tonight I went over there again and it just came out of me again. Like I just love this dog so much. Like already. Like we fell fast. And
we fell fast.
we went outside and he has this like giant ball that he loves and he kind of kicks it like a soccer ball and like it just like made me so happy to watch this dog like dribbling this ball around this yard.
Dribbling.
And so
like,
yeah,
what's the
that's what
catch
it's
of
called.
this story? There's a catch to this story, and I want to hear.
When you dribble, that's what it is in soccer.
I know.
Like when you.
I was just thinking basketball, so I was like, what?
Yeah, no. In soccer, it's also called dribbling when you like kick it around.
Okay.
Anyway, so once again, he jumps on the couch and he just is like kissing me, and I'm like licking me. Sorry,
sounds very intimate, but I understand.
It's a dog. Anyway. And I'm just like, I love you. And then I think he got like the wrong idea because he started like humping my arm.
No. Get out.
So I was like, whoa, this is moving too fast for me. Like, I know I just said I love you. And I know like it felt like I was moving fast, but like this is too fast.
My gracious.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We could get into a whole episode of dogs and how scary they can get, but not today.
Well, yeah, Lauren, you're like low-key scared of dogs, huh?
Yeah, I don't like dogs.
Oh, really?
Overall. Unless they're golden retrievers.
She doesn't.
Golden retrievers and like ones that have like really sweet personalities. But dogs know that they can overtake me. I have dogs that will like jump at me because they just know I'm inferior to them and scared of them. So I'm like, I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. They know
your fear.
They smell my fear and they're like, yeah, she's weak.
Yeah. Actually, on my Rover profile, I think is me petting Samson in Montana.
Oh, Solomon. I was like, who's Samson?
Shoot, Solomon.
That's my dad's golden retriever. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. I love golden retrievers.
So
I could have
sweet.
a golden retriever all the days of my life. I like literally will randomly just like look outside and someone has a golden. I'm like, oh, I love you.
They're so cute.
Besides that, the rest I'm like, like that.
Yeah.
Get out of
here. Sorry, everybody.
Solomon is a handsome boy.
He's very handsome. Yeah.
Yeah. And in this picture, he looks like he adores me. So
yes.
I'm like,
people know.
Andrew's like rubbing his stomach.
Rover.
But you should have done like a pit bull doing that to you. And they're like, oh, she can work with all animals because Goldens love everybody.
Well, low-key, I'm scared of pit bulls. So,
okay.
It's like,
they're kind of scary.
It's like getting into Sandlot territory.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, the beast.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that story and those boundaries that you established.
Yeah. Way to set those boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah. You're welcome. Yeah. Really felt like it needed to be shared here. Although sometimes I start sharing and I'm like, why did I decide to share this publicly? I don't know.
Sometimes it's just good to like, just get it out of your mind. Get into the world.
It's like we had
into the world.
We had a friend text Andrea and me today, and he's like, "So I hear, Andrea, you're walking backwards, and you like fell into a bunch of garbage."
Nothing about like her dating advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, you should listen to our podcast and you would know that this happened. This is old news.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness. I don't know how we're going to segue into our topic with what you just shared.
Yeah. There's really no way to do it.
Got to come out of the gate with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But I will say I'm really excited about this one.
Yeah, that was your idea. Tell us about it.
And I feel like I've been wanting to do it for a while. Like I keep thinking of stuff like, ooh, yeah, we got to do this. We got to do this one. But we're going to talk about over-spiritualizing dating.
Ew.
Something that we've
that
never
possible?
done. So we've been totally perfect in this area.
Yep.
No, as always, we're gonna speak from our
Failures done to us.
The fails going both ways. And we're just gonna jump into it because, like, we don't want to totally take God out of dating either, but we also have been in environments or situations where it just becomes like very spiritualized, I guess is the the word for it. But it's interesting to kind of look at like the root of that and how to hold things loosely, I guess, because dating is just it's something where your emotions get so involved, and I think you do kind of have to steward it maybe a little differently, as far as like your relationship with the Lord and and just trying to hear from him and stuff. So did you guys want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a disclaimer is like God is always moving. God is moving in our lives. Like if you have a relationship with God, God wants to be a part of that and invited into it. We're just going to share more of ways we've seen people probably use God or manipulate spirituality, or we've tried to manipulate our spirituality to get what we want in a relationship. And I think that's where it can get really dangerous is using God or using our words or spiritual language to when it comes to dating in a way that like God probably didn't intend. And so but we believe like that's why we have this podcast, Christians Who Date, is like we believe like our spirituality, our faith, that part of our identity is a really big part of makes up who we are. And it does flow into our dating and our personal relationships and our romantic relationship. And so it's like, how do you decipher what is like unhealthy versus healthy in spirituality? And we'll give some examples from our own stories of like to be able to help you understand like, oh, that could be maybe like over spiritualizing it, and that probably wouldn't be like the healthiest way to go about it. But we're not saying that God can't tell people like who to marry or God can't be a part of things, but also he did give us a brain and logic and so many other things and choice. Yeah. So those are a little bit of thoughts when I think of spiritualization in dating.
Yeah.
Kalli, I feel like you have a thought.
I do have a thought. The three of us have grown up in very like charismatic church environments, and so this is an area where people tend to over spiritualize dating a lot. So I think this is really for people that if you've grown up in church, especially, like it can be really helpful to just hear other people's stories. And I think this is a topic that can just people can take it and run with it in a certain direction, and we just want to kind of shed some light on it and our experiences, our thoughts, because it's not black and white, but there are, I think, tools that we have learned and can share. So
if you're Baptist listening right now, just buckle up. No, just kidding. But you might be like, oh my gosh, those charismatics are wild.
Or you might be like, this is intriguing. I want to hear more.
That might happen too.
Wow.
Honestly, I think a lot of what we talk about is actually similar. We just use different language. Like there's very much like charismatic lingo that was probably saying something really similar to what someone in another denomination would be describing. But that's a whole nother podcast about the differences there, but we'll stick to the topic at hand.
Dre's like ready to go on to her theology spiel.
I'm like, for example, these denominations. Words, so here's what this means. But anyway.
I love it. Well, I think we should start with some stories.
Oh, so many stories. We have so many stories.
Maybe how we have over spiritualized dating, and then we can go from there. And any ways, let's start there.
Yeah. Sweet. I can start.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one was a while back, but I was about to go on a date with a guy from a dating app. I think we were gonna go on our second or third date, maybe. And the night before I was about to go on a date with him, I had a dream about somebody else who I like had kind of known, like was kind of friends with. And in that dream, we like kissed, and I was like, oh my gosh. Cause I had never really thought about him that way, but I had not thought, I was like, I wasn't like, yeah, definitely not this guy, but I was like, whoa, that's interesting. And I think the timing of it more than anything is what threw me off. Cause I was like, why would I have this dream the night before I'm going on a date with this other guy? And so I was like, okay, whatever. That was kind of weird. And then things end up not working out with the guy that it wasn't even Hinge. It was another dating app. Meanwhile, this other guy had kind of been out of my life, but through a series of events, he like came back into my life. And I'm not going to like share specifics, I guess, but it was just, I think for a while, it just felt like one thing after another felt like God is like putting us in the same room or putting us in the same groups or putting us, like it felt like, and I think once you start to think that way, you see it all the time, right? Like all of a sudden you're like, God is orchestrating this entire thing like by
Totally.
hand, and so, and then I had felt like my heart start to change towards him. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I think I like this person. And so eventually, I didn't, so I will say this is one good thing I did. I did not tell him any of that. I didn't tell him that I had a dream about him. I didn't tell him that, I felt anything spiritual at all. All I said was that my heart like had kind of been starting to look at him differently. So I will say plus on that.
Good job.
Thanks. But I think where I went wrong is so we did end up going on like 2 or 3 dates, and honestly, they weren't like that great, but I couldn't see
Sorry.
that.
Didn't mean to laugh like that. That was mean, but I was like, it's so real. You like build it up and then
You
it's like,
build
this
it
sucks.
up and then you're like, wait, we like are just friends. You know what I mean? Like it's like we actually don't have that much like romantic chemistry going on. But I like couldn't see it because I was just like, all I could see still was like the whole divine orchestration of the whole thing. And I think honestly, I think my heart just like wanted it to be I wanted it to be God because I wanted to be done with dating. I wanted this to be like the person. Like I wanted it to be, yeah, I didn't want to have to take responsibility of like, wait, we still have to go on an entire journey where I have to figure out, are we compatible? Like, do I really like him? Does he like me? And I wanted it to be like, nope, this is the person. Like now you just get to like chill and go on dates.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we ended up not working out. I didn't end it because I was so deluded.
No joking.
Delusional. But he ended it, and afterwards I was like, yeah, that was like he did the right thing. Like why did I, like it was just like I was like we weren't like it wasn't that great of like chemistry or anything. So anyway, but I was just like very confused because I felt like it was so divinely orchestrated. And I think, and it's hard because I think when you feel things like that, it's nice because you're like, oh my gosh, God's fathering me. Like he really does care. He really is involved. Like he, like he really does divinely like work things together for me. And then, so I think that part was hard was I was like, wait, all that time I felt like God was involved. And now it feels like I was just wrong, So that was like a hard thing to work through. But I am glad that I never told him anything about like having a dream or anything like that, because that would have just made it way more messy and would have been like probably honestly kind of manipulative, because it would have been, because whenever you pull that God card, like that's kind of spiritual manipulation, because if it really is God, I think that he will show it to both people. But you guys can weigh in on that, because that is like a little bit difficult sometimes. I know there's been maybe healthy ways to do that, so yeah.
Lauren,
Cal, you want to go next, or do you want me?
I can jump in.
Let's do it.
Mine, when it comes to like over spiritualizing dating, it's been more random things. It's not necessarily been like this crazy specific moment, but I do remember it was around like ministry school time. There was this one guy I was like, oh, he's cute, was kind of interested in him. And there's like a specific phrase I've always thought of when I've thought about like someone I want to marry. And my friend that I knew at school, she was like talking about this guy, and she said this exact phrase about him that it's very like it's very unique. And she's like, oh yeah, he reminds me of da 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 da. And I was like, that's really weird. And just was kind of like, huh. And then there were like probably 3 or 4 other like quote unquote signs, and I was just very aware of it. And yeah, I was like, that's really interesting. And so I kind of like had a crush on him, and then he started dating somebody else. And then I was like, dang it. And then they got married pretty quickly afterwards.
Gosh.
Yeah. So it's just like, it's just that random thing of like, if you're looking for signs, you can find them. Or it can just be, like I said, it was my friend who said this random phrase that I'm like, oh my gosh, I've always thought that about the person I was going to be with. And she didn't know. So it's just like, you have to hold things really loosely.
Yes.
And I think, if God wants to confirm things, let him do it. But just, you have to be like really open with things and not be bent on like, well, this is clearly the person for me because I had a dream, I saw this thing. Like, you just, I feel like if it is something like that, the Lord will make it happen. Like, I don't know. You just you can't force it though. And it's really unique. And I also think of growing up, I was like in love with this one boy I knew, and I was like, he's clearly the one. And I like was grasping at straws for like reasons why like he was the one. And then like ended up moving away, and I was still like, no, this is gonna happen. And he also like got married super young and stuff. Dang it. And I was just like, oh, come on, God. So, there's just like, it's so nuanced. It's not black and white.
Yes.
It's just something you have to figure out. And I think also, like we've talked about so many times, dating with community, people that can have a voice, be objective, and be like, hey, I'm also seeing these things, or like, have you thought about this? Just because you can get really swept up, or it is really romantic or whatever. And so you just find reasons to make it like, this is it type of thing when it might not be. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would say majority of, since I like wanted to start dating probably like age like 13 when I became a Christian, I over-spiritualized dating. Like, I really just thought, I have to have the most spiritual husband or date the most spiritual guy, because then I have the most bang for like impacting God's kingdom. Like it was very, and that's actually, if you know Enneagram, I'm an achiever. So it's actually just like how God made me is like, I want to achieve things, which can be really messed up with like the kingdom of God when you're supposed to lay down your life. And I'm like, how do I become God's favorite? How do I like change
save
the
most people?
How do I save the most people? Because I'm going to be the best Christian you ever saw. And that means my husband has to reflect that. And so that means my boyfriend has to reflect that. So my boyfriend better be saving souls 24/7. And so it's like, I literally think my human nature, good parts of it, like it got swept up in spirituality of like, how do I achieve the highest spirituality, quote, quote, and which is so opposite of like who Jesus is. Jesus is like, be in relationship with me, lay down your life, you know? But, and then I think that's how I wanted my partner to be, or, you know, my boyfriend. And so I always went after the really like, in my mind, the leaders. I had a very specific image of who the guy had to look like. And, I would pick different guys. Usually they had a theme. They were spiritual leaders, super tall, like very charismatic in nature. And I would like pray. Like I would kind of fix it on one guy and pray all the time and like try to be in their area. And this happened like with at least 10 guys, I think, over the years. And none of them would date me. I had a type. It was crazy. None of them would date me or even like give me like the time of day. Probably because I was more powerful than them. No, I'm joking. I'm just making up crap. But I just think it's interesting. It's like God in his kindness did not let me like match with these guys because I think he wanted my heart more than like this situation.
Yeah.
But also these guys were like kind of fantasies, right? And so of like what I think I needed or wanted in a partner, because you know there is this pressure in Christianity of like, you've got to marry the right person to impact God's kingdom or it will screw up your life. And it's just like, whoa, so intense. I just think God's way bigger than that. And even if you were in an unhealthy relationship or marriage, like God's so much bigger. God can redeem anything. We of course want to pick healthy relationships, healthy marriages, and so we don't have to go through that pain, but knowing like God can really redeem any situation, he's just way bigger. But I really, for years, I think until I kind of dated that spiritual dream guy that I had, like that prototype, and that was like not a good relationship or not the best relationship. And the way it ended was spiritualized by that person, which was interesting. And to have that towards me, like I had spiritualized our relationship and been like, okay, I'm with the spiritual person, but really we weren't compatible best for dating and a relationship. And then they spiritualized our breakup and said like, well, God told me that, you know, we're not to be together, and I had peace about it. And I was like, wow, that feels horrible. I kind of then swung to the other side where I was like, I don't really want anything spiritual in my dating. But, you know, and so I had to like then go through a whole season of like almost being anti-spiritual in dating and realizing, oh, like what's a balance of a relationship with Jesus and bringing that in. But yeah, I just think it can get really messy because at least personally, I think I used it as like a form in my mind of like manipulation and of like praying to get what I want or what I think I need. And then getting mad at God if like he didn't give me what I wanted when I wanted. And yeah, it's messy. So I think, yeah, you can totally over spiritualize and realize like you don't even think you are. You think you're just praying for something that God has for you and like you desire. And really God's after our heart more than anything. And he wants to give us good things. But he also was like, hey, there's like facts, you know, that I give you, and logic I give you of what's best for you and all of that. One other story when it comes to over spiritualizing, I do have a friend that she was dating a guy that they got a lot of signs that they were to be married, like these like supernatural signs from they'd pray and something would happen and da da da. But he little by little has like isolated her, and now to the point where he is in a cult and she doesn't even talk to her family or anything. And so because of these spiritual signs, even though there was like a lot of unhealth in their dating and they're now married, but it was like, oh, but God told us that we need to do this. You know, God told us that we need to be together. she blindsided all the red flags and all the other things. So I think it is important to know, like, yeah, you might have these like spiritual things happen, but at the same time, like the facts are the facts of like, is this healthy or not? So that's just like unfortunate. And that's where I'm very much like, you have to invite God, community, don't isolate yourself, and, you know, more information for later. But those are some thoughts.
Yeah, that's really good. I feel like one thing that makes me think of is what I kind of like talked about earlier a little bit, but you can't skip the steps. Like, even if you feel like you're getting a million signs, like you still have to go through all the steps of like vetting the person. You want to see how they handle conflict, like, you know, and I'm not saying anything about any specific situation. I'm just like, in general, you still have to, you can't just be like, this is definitely God, like, let's go for it. Let's turn off my own like ability to look at this objectively. Your logic. Because we want that. We don't, it's such a big decision. I think we just don't want to have to make it.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah,
I'm like,
we want God to make it for
God,
us.
just do it. It's taking off ownership of our life. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which kind of leads me into this next question. But why do you guys think why do we over-spiritualize? We just kind of touched on it. Like, we don't maybe necessarily want to take ownership of such a huge decision, or maybe it scares us. But yeah, do you want to talk more about that? Or do you have any other thoughts on like why people do this?
I think it's easier, for instance, if that relationship doesn't work out, then you can blame God and set it and not own it for yourself. And so, for instance, the relationship where the person I was dating was like, hey, I talked to God, I just don't have peace about it. Like, sorry, like, let's just be friends. I was like, oh, I was like, well, God didn't tell me that about us. And it made me like, can I hear God? And then also, I just realized over time, as I reflected, you know, that was years ago, I just remember being like, oh, they just wanted to break up with me. Why couldn't they just say, I didn't want to date you, you know? But they had to use that language of like blaming it on God, because then they didn't have to take the ownership of like, oh, I have to tell this person I don't want to. It like kind of like takes off that ownership of like, oh, I don't want them to get mad at me. Instead of just be like, yeah, like, I don't want to date you. Like, you know, it's just simple. So
it was like he didn't want to be the bad guy.
He didn't want to be the bad guy, so make God the bad guy. Yeah.
Like he's like, oh, sorry, you know, I'd still be hanging out, but God
told me,
he
like, we
told
can't.
me. Like,
and that felt so yucky as well. Like, it felt yucky because I was like,
well,
I wanted to date you at the time, and so I'm like, oh, like that feels really weird and confusing. And so I was like, do I hear God right?
wouldn't do me like that?
Yeah, I'm like, I prayed too hard for this, you know. So but yeah, I mean, that's where it is, just owning like when you want to date someone or not. And I think God can like totally be beautiful and be a part of things, and like you can see it, but it doesn't have to be like these super supernatural things. It can just be like beautiful things coming together where you're like, well, this actually logically makes sense that we're compatible, you know, or not. So
yeah.
Kalli,
do you have thoughts on that?
I think there's a really normal part of us that wants God to be involved in, you know, what's going to be one of the biggest decisions of our lives. So I think that there is like a really, how would I put it? Like, there should be part of you that's like, yeah, I want the Lord's input, and I want to know what he thinks and says about this. So I think that part is great and should be normal. But I do think, I think there's so many factors that we need experience dating the person, real time in the water, rather than, like you said, you can just kind of like see all these things about somebody and get like a fantasy, and you're like, oh, I want that. And then actually dating them might be different from what you think it is going to be. Having people's opinions, having like praying and doing all those things, like, I think are so important as well. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure where I'm going with this, but essentially I think it's okay to want the Lord to be involved, but just, it is something you have to be open-handed with. You can't just be like, the stars aligned and this is clearly it. Like, it might not be. So again, I think we all know people, like Lauren just mentioned somebody, but we all know people who got a word or a sign, and it's in a really rough place right now. Like marriages, or like I have a friend that had a situation happen with like a prophetic word, and her husband, they got married and it turned out really abusive and they're no longer married. So it's just like so tricky, and you just have to not operate in fear, but operate in wisdom. So yeah.
In addition to that, we were talking a little bit right before this podcast, we were talking about, even we've had community members or family members or friends spiritualize our dating, of like, oh, I think you're going to marry this person, or, oh, like God gave me a word. And I've actually had a couple people recently this past year come to me and be like, you're going to meet your husband soon, or you're going to be, I see you as married, or I see you with kids. I've had all of that. And in my heart, I go, maybe, but maybe not. And I've learned that over the years of like, no, I'm going to put that to the side. I'm not hanging on to any of that.
Yeah.
Because also those people, like, they probably should not be saying that. But I also have gone to the maturity of like, I'm all of that I take with like a grain of salt. Like, honestly, there's no weight to any of them. Me 10, 15 years ago would have taken a lot of weight to a lot of those words. But I think it's just wisdom of like, that's not what I need to hear to like be confirmed if I'm going to get married or not to someone. Like, this guy I'm dating, those words don't make me feel like, oh, he's the one because I got these words. It's like, I'm just like, oh, that'd be cool if those like words are, right there. But also it's like, no, that's not. The facts are, I need to look at this person's character. I need to date them over time. Like, have life played out. How are they in community? Like, it has nothing to do with those words that's going to confirm our relationship or not. So yeah. Dre, what are your thoughts?
I was about to sneeze, and then I lost my train of thought. But I guess I have another story about getting prophetic words, so I can talk a little bit about that.
What's a prophetic word, just so that if anybody doesn't know what that means?
Yeah, so like Kalli said, we grew up in more charismatic church, and we are currently in more charismatic church environments. And I think basically we believe that the gift of prophecy is still for today. So we believe that we can hear from God and that other people can hear from God. And so sometimes what happens in charismatic environments is somebody will come up and say, like, I have a word for you. And what they mean is, I feel like God is saying this. And like, I think in healthy charismatic environments, like, you're very much invited to, or not just invited, but like strongly encouraged to test every time someone says that. And that's in the Bible too. I don't have the exact reference on me right now, but we do, like, that's what part of being in that kind of culture requires, is that you test every word. And so yeah, but that's kind of like the overview, I guess. And so anyway, yeah, so I was in a relationship where we were together, and then we broke up, and I got a prophetic word that, like, basically that, like, our relationship wasn't over yet, or like God wasn't done with us yet. And so in the moment, I think I was like kind of annoyed, but I did kind of like, I don't know, I had it in my head, I guess, like, that's interesting. And then we like started talking again, and it started going in the direction of us getting back together. And then once we got back together, I still wasn't sure. And I got another random person that also was talking about like, it's like, it's hard because I'm like, I don't want to share specifics about all of these. But basically, I got another word. That wasn't like specifically like this guy, but it was just kind of about dating. And then we got another one at church. A random person came up and said something about like basically thinking that we were going to get married. And so I at this point have like 3 different instances of people, and I think like, and I knew that I had to hold those loosely, but it is difficult when, like Kalli said, you do really want God to be involved. And so when things like that happen, like, man, there's still such a part of you that is like, I hope that's true, you know? And I think what happened in this case for me was we were running into some really real practical, like, incompatibility things, but I just kept pushing forward because I was like, nope, I have these 3 words, like this is all going to get sorted out. And I think I lost a little bit of my like objectivity or even like trusting myself, honestly, because the first time we broke up, that was me like making a decision to trust myself. And then I kind of lost that the second time that we dated. And so it was a real like struggle, but I finally got to the point where I was like, okay, like this is just so clearly not what I want. But I will say this, I knew, which I think this was helpful, and I'm very thankful that I was taught like to look at it this way, but I was just like, I know that I have to be able to own this decision. Like, because we were talking about marriage at that point, and I was like, if we get married, I absolutely have to be able to own this. I cannot just go off of like, well, we got these 3 words, you know? Like,
yeah, totally.
We'll be fine.
Right. Yeah. Like it'll be fine. And
God said so.
Totally. And I'm so thankful that I had that because it would not have been fine. Like it became very clear that it was not going to be fine. And so anyway, eventually, we ended things, and it was honestly like a really good decision. So I think, yeah, I guess what I would say, because this is kind of the next question I wanted to ask, but like, what would you say to someone who's seeing signs or maybe gets these like words, or, you know, I think in other circles it might be more like feels like an impression or like a leading from the Lord, like in a certain direction about their relationship. So yeah, what would you say to someone who is kind of feeling like they're getting this leading from the Lord, I guess?
I think my initial thought is just like, you got to give it time.
Yeah.
Because I think time is very telling. And so, great, you can have all the prophetic words in the world, but what is dating them actually like? And like you said, like, oh, I realized we had some real incompatibilities, that even though we had these words, like this was still the reality of like our everyday and what our marriage would have looked like. And so I think, great, if you have signs, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but don't bank on those, and set them to the side and just get to know the person in front of you and what their character is, what they're like. I think that's the biggest thing I would say.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about this of like the difference between like dating and marriage and all of this, right? Because once you're married, it's like, okay, we're locked in. You're going to do whatever you can to bring God in to different situations or pray or have faith. I mean, I think no matter what, you do want to invite God in to your dating and pray and have faith. But at the same time, you're trying to see if you're compatible for the rest of your life. Like, and so there's so many things that need to be invited in than just spirituality and just some words. Like you said, that's not much ground to lay the foundation of your relationship on. Your relationship is founded on so many different areas of compatibility than just some words. And honestly, I think it's foolishness to just like, if you had just like a feeling or a word or a dream, to just be like, yep, we're gonna get married. And I mean, I just think there's so many other things like that God wants to do to build a relationship, because relationship is actually to like lay down your life for one another, but also it's about family, it's about God's kingdom, it's about community. And so there's all these other things that, you know, you only marry one person. Like, you know, so that's, yeah, you can have as many friends as you want, you know, like, but it's only one person you spend the rest of your life in building a family with. And so you want it to be one that like is a good choice for you and for them, and is built on like friendship and all of that. And so there's just these like basics of what it should look like. And I think God can totally be a part of all of that. And that's through their faith and their relationship with God and how they treat their family and community and you. Like, yeah, those are great things. Like if their spirituality comes out where it's like you're connected, and I'd hope Jesus would be the center of whoever you date. And that would be the most important priority for both of you. But at the same time, it's like God has given us discernment and wisdom for a reason. That's why we have these, you know, this dating podcast about, even like the episode I love, if you ever want to listen to, of like, we talk about green flags, yellow flags, and red flags. Like there's different ways to see like what is good about the person, what are maybe some warning signs, and what are some things that like, hey, this could be detrimental to our relationship. Like God gave us wisdom to actually be able to, in a sense, vet the person that we date, to know like, yeah, this is going to be a good choice if I decide to spend the rest of my life with them. It's not just going to be because of like some feelings or some dreams or words or whatever. I really want to go into this, and I just wait, can I just go into something that like is kind of on my heart?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I think as women, we, especially Christian women, we really want to follow God. And I just want women to be so discerning of men who can be spiritually manipulative. And what I mean by that is that they can use their leadership as a Christian or their faith to manipulate you into dating them, or them saying it's like from God, or so many things. But just like knowing that like if someone's using their spirituality to manipulate you, like that's not God's heart. And maybe you all have examples, but it's just like God has given us all sound minds for a reason, and God has given us the power of choice. So if anyone's pressuring you to like stay with them because God said so, or do certain things because God said so, like God has given you a gut and given you wisdom and a power of choice in all of that. And so yeah, those are something I was just thinking about, because I feel like I've seen that more and more of people using their Christianity to manipulate situations in dating and marriage, unfortunately.
There's some actually really not bueno situations that have come out in the last few years. Is that what you were thinking of?
Yeah, definitely. People using their pace of Christianity as a way to take control of people. And so we don't want that. That's not the heart of Christ, you know?
Yeah. And a lot of times it's because like they're in some kind of position of authority where you might start to doubt yourself, because you're like, well, they're like, you know, so high up in this organization or this church or whatever, like they must really hear from the Lord. Or maybe they're even known as someone who hears from the Lord, but like you absolutely also hear from the Lord. And especially like the really, really bad situations, it's been like they're contradicting like what
Scripture
the character
says
of God, that how he's revealed himself in the word, which is why it's so important that you know the word, because you got to know like God would never be telling, you know, this guy, whoever the heck he is, like these things, you know, like, so yeah. Yeah, that's good, Lauren. I'm glad you talked about that, because that's been something that we've been seeing more.
Yeah. Or it's been being more exposed.
Yes, it's been more coming into the light. So yeah.
Anything else?
I was gonna say, so I feel like they said this maybe. I'm trying to think of who originally said that. I can't remember, but somebody was saying like it takes 3 yeses for marriage. It takes your yes, God's yes, and the other person's yes. And sometimes you might have a crush on someone, and so it's a yes from you. They might be like honestly a really godly man, and God might be like, yeah, great. But if that guy doesn't like you, like it's a no, because you don't have 3 yeses. So like it's you just kind of have to like realize that God doesn't just like steamroll over us. Like he allows for choice, and so you and that other person have to be able to choose each other. And if he can't choose you or you can't choose him, like, you know, it doesn't matter if you feel like it would be a really godly relationship or a godly marriage. Like maybe it would be, but yeah, it's a no if you guys can't choose each other. So yeah, and I would not pull the God card with anybody. I would not be like, well, God said that like we're supposed to be together.
If someone said that, I'd be like,
bye
flag.
Yeah. Bye. I think a huge thing with the prophetic that honestly we kind of forget in charismatic circles sometimes is you have to act with so much humility in this area, and you have to realize that you could be hearing God wrong. Like I've gotten words where they do not, like, I'm like, this does not resonate with me, and they do not want to be wrong. Like they're like, well, maybe it's this, like, well, maybe it's the future, like, well, and it's like, or maybe you got it wrong. Like it doesn't mean you don't hear from the Lord. It doesn't mean that he hasn't spoken to you before. And it doesn't mean that he won't speak to you in the future, but like you can't you have to be able to admit that like sometimes our humanity or like our own emotions or our own perspective or our own lens clouds maybe what we're feeling from the Lord or getting an impression of. And so when you just have to hold it with so much humility, which is like a whole nother lesson in itself. But it's just like, especially within dating, like I'm just always like, okay, you know, I'll have like some kind of feeling and I'm like, okay, that could be God, but I could be wrong.
Like, yeah.
And that's why you want to, like we've talked about, that's why you want to bring it into community, because community, like they're not in the swirl of emotions that you're in while you're dating. And so they can really ground you in some like important ways. So that's probably the last thing I would say on it. But do you guys have any other thoughts?
I mean, there was multiple guys I thought I was going to marry from God, and I'm not married to any of them. Like I learned to hold my heart so loosely.
Yeah.
Because actually I feel like there's a ton of things that God showed me that have happened in people's lives or words I've said. And it's like, you know, definitely been from him. But in the area of my heart and other people's hearts, I've learned to be so careful. I like don't give words about like romance stuff to people, because to me, what I'll do is, if anything, or people are like, hey, would you pray for me about dating, marriage, whatever. If I hear something, I'll keep it to myself. I'll pray for them. Like I bless your relationship. I bless your marriage. I bless like, you know, whatever. But I'm not like speaking into that, because that's that heart can be super, super messy. But the thing is, I totally 100% believe God cares about relationships. He cares about our dating life.
Yeah.
He cares about our heart, but he cares most about us in relationship to him and to others. Like he cares so much more about my heart and like my love for him than like me dating some cool dude. I think personally. Does he like want me to be and like great, healthy relationships? Yes, but he's going to do whatever it takes for us to be in like healthy relationships and be, you know, connected to him. And so, yeah. And I'm like, God cares about every part of our life. He wants to be involved in our dating. He wants to be involved in every aspect, but he also gave us a brain for a reason. Like he gave us a gut for a reason, you know, and he gave us community for a reason. And so that we can invite in all of that. And at the end of the day, you have to own your life. Like we've had episodes on this, but like you have to own your life, who you choose to date, who you choose to marry, build a family with, and you choose that person every single day. It would be so nice if it was just like, oh, ding, there's my husband and we are married and life is easy. It's like, no, you lay down your life every day. Like I choose to follow God every day. There's a lot of things I choose not to do because I follow God. And I will choose that person, you know, every day of my life, like whether I feel like it or not, once I'm definitely married to them. And so I think that's just the power of choice and owning your life. Like you have to at the end of the day, and God can be a part of that, but we're not, I mean, like that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good, Lauren. Kalli, did you have anything?
I honestly don't have anything else.
Great.
I think you guys covered it.
Great.
I'm just getting rolling.
Lauren's ready for like a part 2.
It was a good wrap up. It was a good wrap up role, Lauren. So thank you for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us. And we will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.